So, I have to like this, right? Like, it would be wildly hypocritical of me if I gave this a negative review, right? Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS and welcome to the first Big Finish review of a 2026 release. Big Finish have decided to open 2026 with an audio novella release. So basically the audio novels range from Big Finish are these very lengthy 6 to 7 hour Doctor Who narrated audio novels. And I've listened to and reviewed most of the stories in this range, and if you've gone back to my previous reviews, there's one pretty consistent issue, and it's that I think that they're too long. While I think the audio novels range hits more than it misses, not all of these stories can be written by Kate Orman, so they often end up outstaying their welcome. So I think to remedy this consistent criticism, from me personally of course, Big Finish have decided to release Doctor Who the audio novellas, with The Time Splitters by Colin Brake and Dimension 13 by David Llewellyn. These are first and third Doctor stories respectively, with essentially a truncated runtime. They're about half the length of your average audio novel, clocking in at around 3 hours each. So basically, going into this release, I have to like this, right? Because this basically remedies the main issue that I have with the audio novels by basically taking the similar creative team and the similar approach that they do with the audio novels, but just cutting the runtime. And I'm glad to say that The Time Splitters and Dimension 13 is a really strong release. And a big part of that is because of The Time Splitters story by Colin Brake. This is a First Doctor, Stephen and Dodo story narrated by Peter Purves. And the story starts how most First Doctor stories start, with the Doctor unable to control the TARDIS, and it lands in the 24th century at the Lunar University on Earth's moon. Essentially, the TARDIS is basically caught in two places at once and doesn't know where to land. It's stuck between 2345 and 2353, and it's on the latter date that Stephen winds up in, and the Doctor and Dodo are on the former. And I have to say, it's a really novel approach to have a two-pronged narrative, but also a great sense of inevitability, where Stephen lands 8 years in the future and some massive disaster has taken place at the Lunar University, and Stephen meets up with a bunch of soldiers who have been sent to the Lunar University to clean up and figure out what happened here. All the while, the Doctor and Dodo are at the event that actually will cause the disaster, so you have this great sense of inevitability and encroaching threat. So while Stephen is in the quote future trying to figure out what happened and how to survive at the Lunar University, the Doctor and Dodo are trying to figure out what time travel experiments are happening on the university and stop the disaster from happening. And at the university, you've got missing students, you have a strangely enigmatic absent professor, and a protest movement which is led by a mysterious unseen figure. The twist behind this figure is actually really strong. And all of this adds up to a really compelling 3 hours of audio.
In their own time, mankind had just been planning the first manned space missions to the moon. The American president had promised that they would put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, but when Dodo had joined the TARDIS team, that dream had still been away. And now, here she was herself on the moon, albeit almost 300 years later. Did that make her the first woman on the moon? Did it count if she'd travelled in time as well as in space? Dodo's daydreams were finally interrupted by the appearance of another security officer. He asked her to stand up. "Security Chief Stone will see you now," he announced, before leading her into a small office where she was to be interviewed. Dodo wasn't brilliant at guessing the age of people, but the woman was clearly older than Stephen, but probably younger than the Doctor. Dodo estimated that would put her in the range of about 50-odd to maybe 500-odd. In short, old.
I really enjoyed The Time Splitters. I think that Colin Brake did a great job at world building the Lunar University, and like I said, giving us this sense of inevitability and impending dread that this huge disaster is going to take place at the university, and because Stephen is in the future, you can't really change history, can you? But one thing that I really personally enjoyed about The Time Splitters is that this is a TARDIS team under Gerry Davis, the script supervisor, where you've got the First Doctor, Stephen and Dodo, but it feels like a script that would have been overseen seen by Dennis Spooner, like The Chase or The Time Meddler. It's sort of like these two eras of the First Doctor's tenure colliding in really interesting ways, and I thought that was a really novel approach to take with the Time Splitters. And honestly, that's kind of what I want to see from the First Doctor, or just generally any 1960s and 70s Doctor Who through Big Finish, just sort of this strange mashing of worlds which we would not have got on TV, but we can in the expanded media. It's a really novel approach. I think Peter Purves does a really good job at narrating. Like I've said before, I think he does a better First Doctor than he does Stephen Taylor, but it's a really good performance. But in terms of issues with the Time Splitters, I wasn't a big fan of the main villain of the story. I just thought that it was a little bit generic, and you get into some really strange moral directions, like when we figure out what the villain's deal is and what motivates them, and I think that the First Doctor and the TARDIS team are kind of a bit too quick to dismiss its motivations. Oddly enough, if the Time Splitters was a 6 or 7 hour audio novel, maybe we could have dove into that a bit deeper, but now I feel like I'm being really hypocritical here. I don't know, I may have to not revisit the Time Splitters in case I find something morally dubious about how it deals with the main villain. I don't know, out of sight, out of mind. So let's move on to the second story in the audio novellas box set, Dimension 13 by David Llewellyn. This is a Third Doctor Season 7 unit story narrated by Jon Culshaw. We've got the Third Doctor, Liz Shaw and the Brigadier, and they're on a mission with UNIT to Antarctica. They're sent to Shackleton Base, where there's some strange time anomalies and phenomena taking place around the base, culminating in an encounter with what we can see on the cover here, this giant cube, which leads to the titular Dimension 13, and in order to stop these anomalies, the Doctor may have to make the ultimate sacrifice.
"What have you found?" the Doctor asked. "This," said Anderson, holding up a poster that Liz recognized as the work of Toulouse-Lautrec. It took a moment for her to realize what was wrong. "It's back to front," she muttered. "Yes, so it is," said the Doctor. "I had the same poster on my bedroom wall at Rodine," said the Lance Corporal. "I must have seen it every day for 5 or 6 years. I knew right away something was amiss." "A printing error?" said Liz. "That's what I thought at first. But then I looked around the room. You should see this." Anderson made her way back into the room, and the others followed. It was much like every other room in the barracks. A few photos and keepsakes, a few books. In one corner was a Dansette record player and a David Bowie LP. Liz crossed the room and picked it up. The writing on it said, "Ewab Divad, Sudrats Igis." She turned the record over. Every song title was similarly reversed.
I did like Dimension 13, but I do have a couple of caveats about it. In terms of mirror dimensions, which is a big part of Dimension 13, I think it's just a case of bad timing that the latest audio novel from the Big Finish range was The Mirror Matter by Kate Orman, which did this idea, in my opinion, significantly better, with the exact same characters in the exact same era, with the exact same TARDIS team, and with a longer runtime. I think that The Mirror Matter is a better mirror dimension story with this TARDIS team. It's just unfortunate timing, I think. I also think the supporting cast of Dimension 13 are pretty bog standard. You've got your red shirt scientists, you've got your red shirt soldiers, you've got these characters who have never met the Doctor before so that he can fight back against them and push against them when they don't believe his science mumbo jumbo. But at the same time, Dimension 13 has some brilliant vignettes. There's a terrific set piece where a general goes through his final moments before disintegration, and we get his thought process as he slowly starts breaking down. It's a really affecting moment. I also got the sense that David Llewellyn loves writing for the Brigadier specifically. I thought, he clearly loves this character, and I don't blame him. And as we all know already, Jon Culshaw is terrific at narrating Third Doctor audio adventures. He does a great Pertwee, he does a great Nicholas Courtney, he's well suited here. But what makes Dimension 13 stand out for me is that it feels like Doctor Who meets Werner Herzog's Encounters at the End of the World. You get this dimension which turns your own thoughts and fears against you, and it feels like a manifestation of the isolation and the cabinet cabin fever that being on the edge of the world can bring you in this Antarctic base. And that's what makes the third Doctor in this story a really inspired choice as well, because this Doctor is solid as a rock, because he's generally unaffected by the dimension, or at least he's not affected in the same way as the rest of the cast, because his lifestyle means that he doesn't really know what the edge of the world is. But even then, there's a really novel twist near the end about how the dimension manifests for him specifically in a really novel approach. But Dimension 13 feels really well suited for this particular format. I feel like if it was pitched as an audio novel, it would be good, but I really don't think it would have sustained a 6 or 7 hour runtime. But at around 3 hours, it feels right at home. Part of me just wishes that this particular box set had much longer behind the scenes interviews with the narrators and the writers. They're only 4 or 5 minutes each in terms of the behind the scenes, and I feel like you could have got a lot more out of them. But as a release, the Time Splitters and Dimension 13, this was really strong. I do think that the Time Splitters is the crown jewel of the box set for me, but you know, I think both of them are really strong releases. And personally, I would find it much easier to recommend listening to this than almost any of the other audio novels, because with this, you've got a 6 or 7 hour story that doesn't really justify the runtime, and with this, you know, with The Lord of Misrule, for example, that's the story, that's the setting, that's the characters, whereas with this, you get more bang for your buck in terms of TARDIS teams and settings and tones and genres and such. But yeah, the Time Splitters and Dimension 13, really cool stuff. I love the cover as well. This looks so dynamic, really great stuff. So yeah, that was my review of Doctor Who, The Time Splitters and Dimension 13, the first of Big Finish's audio novellas range and the first release of theirs for 2026. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe and comment and all that good stuff down below. Thank you so much for watching, and folks, I'll see you all next time.